solve this example, go to the e-learning and download Excel Training 3, then go to the tdist1 sheet. Now write the population mean, sample standard deviation, and the sample size in different cells in Excel. First of all, we have to compute the degree of freedom, which is sample size minus 1, equals C9 minus 1 for one sample. Then compute the t-value by using this formula. Remember to put the parentheses. Sample mean minus population mean divided by the sample standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size, which is 10. Then we compute the p-value by inserting the tdist function from formula, insert function, tdist, in the first argument, we put the t-value that we already computed, then the degree of freedom, then the number of tails. Here, the number of tails are 2 as we said before, because h1 does not equal, and greater than or less than are not mentioned in the question. Now the p-value is 0.036. We go to the significance probability table, p-value, then our decision will be significant evidence to reject H0. Now, let's explain how to use the t-test in two samples. First, to find the p-value for two samples by using t-test, we have to compute the standard deviation for both samples, which is called the average standard deviation, by using this formula, where sigma x is the standard deviation for the first sample, and sigma y is the standard deviation for the second sample. Then we find the t-value by using this formula. X bar is sample 1 mean, or the mean of the first sample. Y bar is the mean for the second sample. And n is the sample size. After that, we have to find the degree of freedom, which is 2 times n minus 2 for the two samples, where n is the one sample size. Then we find the p-value by using tdist function in Excel. Finally, we have to make a decision depending on the p-value table. Example 2. Two samples tdist. In this example, we will explain how to use tdist in two samples. The University of Jordan Hospital wishes to determine if the cost of care for men and women is different or not. The administration of the hospital selects a sample of 50 men and 50 women. Given that the mean and the standard deviation for both samples are as follows, for men and for women, n is equal 50, which is the one sample size. Use tdist to determine if the cost of care for men and women is different or not. As you see in this example, we have two samples, so it is two samples case. Also, the question does not mention greater than or less than, so it is two-tail. Now, let's open Excel Training 3 another time and go to the tdist2 sheet. As we said before, this question is two tails and two samples. We have two samples, and because of the relational operator H1 does not equal, so it is two tails. Now we write the standard deviation and the mean for both samples. Then we compute the degree of freedom, which is 2n minus 2, 2 times 50 minus 2. As you know, we use only one sample size, not both samples. Then we will compute the average standard deviation, the standard deviation for both samples, by using the formula sigma xy Remember to put the parentheses in the correct way. Then we compute the t-value by using the t-value formula for two samples. First sample mean minus the second sample mean divided by sigma xy times the square root of 2 divided by n, which is the one sample size, and here it is 50. Now let's compute the p-value. We go to formulas, insert function, select all, then press T on the keyboard till we find tdist. It is tdist, not t.dist. The first parameter is the t-value. The second parameter is the degree of freedom. And the third parameter is the number of tails, and here we have two tails. After that, we take the p-value and go to the p-value table. Here in this sheet we do not have it, so we go to another sheet. In the exam you will find this table in the info sheet, and you do not have to memorize this table. So our decision is insignificant evidence to reject H naught. Dear students, please remember that the degree of freedom for one sample tdist is n minus 1. The degree of freedom for two samples tdist is 2 times n minus 2. When you compute the t-value in Excel, put parentheses in the numerator and parentheses in the denominator. The function that is used in Excel to find the square root is sqrt. The t-value cannot be negative, especially in the two samples tdist. So in the numerator, subtract the small mean from the large mean. You don't have to memorize the t-value formulas. They will be provided in the info sheet in the exam. Thank you for listening and good luck, my students.